Welcome to the Trails Committee meeting on January 24th. I am calling the meeting to order at 7:35, and we'll do a roll call. Please let me know that you're here when I call your name. Tom McCoolier.
Here.
Isabella Bogdansky.
Here.
Satyendra Sharma.
Here.
And Will Warren.
Here.
Great. And Kat McKee here. Okay, so our first order of business, and I can put this up on the screen, the minutes from last meeting. Thank you, Sati, for pulling that together. Let me just pull these up. Okay, share the right screen. Let me know when you can see the minutes.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Okay, so it was just we had a longer meeting, but it was it was very specific, so we don't have long minutes to talk about details, just a little high level recap. Let me know when I can scroll down. I'm going to add a period here. Oh, actually I have to commit to periods, don't I? Okay, fine. Good. Scrolling down. Good here.
I like the part you had spent 30 minutes for Mass Trails Grant Project discussion in the meeting minutes.
Well, it was specifically called out. Will, did you ask? I think you might have asked for Sati to put those in there for our time, or maybe it was you, Tom, for time tracking purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is there already, right?
Yeah.
No, I said that was good. I like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you told me my yeah.
Yep.
Tom, yeah, you told me actually. Yeah, that is good. Yeah. you pointed it out, that put that in the minute, and that is good. So that
all
we
of
can
that,
have.
all of that 30 minutes. Well, Isabella, you actually missed that part of the discussion, but now that you're reading through the minutes, I circulated the timesheet. So we all want to make sure we add to our timesheet that 30 minutes from the meeting. Not you, Isabella, but you get the gist for tonight when we talk about the Mass Trails Grant. We'll be very specific with bright lines about when the time clock starts and when it stops. And this minute discussion does not count, just so you know.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, great. Okay, any questions, concerns, or thoughts about the minutes? I'm going to add a comma here and reduce a space here. Anybody? Okay.
Yep.
Does someone want to make a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, so let's do roll call if you agree. Satyendra Sharma,
Yes.
Tom McCoolier,
Yes.
Will Warren. It has to be a verbal, Will. You're on mute. Still on mute. I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to ask to unmute you. Do you get a little notice?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, great. Now I forgot who I've already said. Isabella Bogdansky
Yes.
and Kat McKee. Did I get everybody?
Yes.
It's been a long week. Okay, got it. Okay, so
I said that today too, Kat.
you did. Okay, good.
It's only Tuesday.
Yeah, so okay, so the minutes passed from 1:17. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up is I do have a little update for us. So we heard from Rob Anderson from EDC, and he said this is related to the grant writer. He had reached out and had already talked to the select board. So he basically, our email went into his junk email. So he apologized for not getting back to us. And he still wants a chance to hop on to a Trails agenda in the future and talk about the proposal. And oh, he sometime in February. So when we schedule our February meeting, we'll connect with him. So that's good news. Any questions or thoughts on that? No. Okay. Next up is the DCR MOA Trails Agreement status update. We don't have any new news since last week, so we're good there to move on to the next topic. I do think related to this, I'm going to, we had talked about whether we could use the MOA because we've used it in the past and it's worked for us. So I'm going to reach out to Sudbury Valley trustees and check with them. And considering we're a municipality and they're a nonprofit, we a difference, and that it might be okay if we break free and do this, move the MOA forward and I just want to make sure the town council is comfortable with the indemnification as written and redlined and see if we can move that forward. But again, it doesn't preclude us from moving forward with the fencing project, which is good. Next up is Mass Trails Grant next steps and project related discussion. So our next step is meeting with the
That's awesome.
financial team. So we're going to be meeting with Brian Ballantyne, Melanie for procurement, Mark for procurement, Tim Davis recreation, and Carla from finance. She's the accounting department. And we're going to talk about the different accounts that the Trails Committee has for money and how we're going to work through this Mass Trails Grant reimbursable, being a reimbursable grant, and how we're going to pay for the fencing and the signage first and get reimbursed from what department, from what accounts. So, and then I had reached out to CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, and spoke with Freddie first, and we'll attend a February meeting with them, but we wanted to get some preliminary information. The CPC money is separate and handled separate from the town's accounting process. So we would go through the committee to spend any of that money. So we are working, I'm going to be sending Freddie a quick update on the different, the two scopes, as I'll call it, like Mass Trail scope and then larger scope, the other project scope, and have her see what we can do, how CPC money will play into that. So
Why are you giving Freddie the Mass Trails grant? That has nothing to do with CPC.
oh, but it does. It does. Because when we went to CPC, we said that we would be using that money to go after a Mass Trails grant, right? And for a larger scope. Okay. So we did not get we did not get more money. So the CPC money is the money that most matches if you remember that project we put forth, it was a fencing and signage project with a possibility of expanded scope. So that's why CPC is involved, right? But if CPC money can't be used in this way, the question is, can the CPC money be used for the expanded scope as it was initially intended and written, within the CPC warrant article? So that's how it's involved. We need to see how the money interacts with each other. Does that make sense? It's confusing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay.
But as long as you understand it.
No, we don't quite understand it. We're running on the edge of reality here. And when we go to our meeting on Thursday, and Tom is joining me, we are going to have a much better understanding of where we're at and how we spend money and how we don't spend money. Yeah. So that's the quick and dirty on that. So any questions? There's really nothing more we can do. I have not notified the vendor because I have found that it's better just to wait for that one next meeting that you have on your books to go ahead and understand a little bit more before we say we're going forward, just because there could be a timeline, something that comes out of the timeline that will help us better direct the vendor. And I'd rather not go to the vendor back and forth because we don't want them to not like us out of the gate for being yo-yo clients. Anything on that? Any else? Anyone? Thoughts? Great. Okay, so the bid. So this was the dilemma. I sent the bid after our meeting last week. I cleaned it up for our discussion and sent it to Tim Davis to look at that very next morning, except I didn't hit the send button. It was sitting in my drafts folder. So that was on me. And I went and looked this morning because Tim is very responsive and saw that that's what had happened. Because I sent like a slew of emails that morning to accounting and to CPC and to everybody to get everybody the next steps on everything. And that email didn't go. So he did get us a quick review today, but he has more comments. But I will go over. Are you guys seeing the bid document? No. Because it requires me to.
You're not sharing anything.
Oh, I'm not sharing anymore. Good for me. Okay, now you should see it in 2 seconds.
Mhm.
Is
Yep.
this updated over what you had out on the drive?
No, this is what was on the drive. Yeah, version 3, 117 per our conversation last week.
Right.
Okay, so Tim had a lot to say, which was good, and it's expected because this is our first bid and we don't really know what we're doing. We are getting better at knowing what we're doing and knowing what we don't know. So he's asked to connect on a different number of things that is going to be a better conversation than written, but just to highlight a few key points that he had. I'm going to scroll. Hold on. Okay, here. So where we say one of his concerns was the use of the word approximate, right? So we put a lot of approximates in our project description here on this page when it comes down to the natural surface, the natural earth surface trail and the bridge and the boardwalk and things like that. He said it opens it up for interpretation by a bidding contractor. So we want to try to be as precise as possible, especially and also when we say install 1 or 2 bog bridges. He said the difference between 1 and 2 structures can be significant. I would suggest you all narrow these down as precise as you can. So my recommendation would be to leave them at the measurements that we have here because we spent good time doing that. And unless, yeah, I mean, we could go out and try to measure again if we wanted to. I'm not opposed to going out and measuring twice, cutting once type of thing. But we would need Tom's long measuring cord or we could use that as an opportunity. No, we can't because we have to go through the procurement process to buy a tape measure and we don't have that. Sorry.
So what she's talking about, I do have a 100-foot tape measure.
So we could remeasure, or I mean, I feel pretty confident about these numbers, but
I am too. We measured them pretty good when we were out there.
because what's going to happen is what's the worst that's going to happen? It's going to be a 78-foot bridge, and what are they going to do? I mean, they're going to have to deal with that variable. Right.
And it could be, at the end of the day, it could be 108 foot instead of 110 foot.
And bog bridges, do you know how much they cost? It's like, and this is, I'm not being flippant, but they're like 2 pieces of wood.
Yeah, I know.
I think we quoted at them $112. So I don't know if it's 1 or 2, and that's where we need the expertise of the project manager and the trail builder to say, yeah, you need 2 here because it's going to get really wet. Right. And that's why we left it at 1 or 2. So maybe we err on the side of needing 2. So they quote 2. And if we only need 1, we just do 1.
Right. We can do that at the end of the bid and stuff. Like if everybody comes back and says we only need 1 here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll go install 2 8x10 foot long pressure. Oh, I'm on number 5, but yes, I agree with you. There you want to change it, install 2. Yep, perfect. Bridges, yep.
So I'm fine with that.
Is
Yeah.
it possible get you have removed the approximate because Tim Davis is saying that, but can we just put a kind of a disclaimer that, it's a variable and
Let's see. Yeah, I like that, Sati, because I mean, we're not exact, like our measurements, our measuring tools are not exact. And we should be a little off, I would hope.
You know,
'cause-
before we change it, why don't, when we ask him, is it, plus or minus 4 feet?
Yeah, let's,
Plus or minus,
that's a really good question, is like, okay, here's a scenario. What would you propose? How do we get this to where we need it to be? Like, so let me put a little note here.
then we can put all the measurements.
Is there a level?
STC members measured this. Exact, I don't know, I would ask guidance for him. Just in case we didn't do it right,
Yeah,
but that'll be a change control.
Is there a level of completeness that we could specify that doesn't require measurement, like, to fill this space or whatever, or to go from hither to yon?
that's a good point. I don't know.
I mean, we're looking for a bog bridge, right? And so we're looking for a something that goes from dry land through the bog to more dry land, right?
Yeah. And
but-
it's not always, it's not always wet, so it kind of fluctuates.
yeah, so the size is variable also depending on the season.
Right, so I don't, I would just ask him for measuring inaccuracies. We are probably within a foot or two of all our measurements.
Okay, yeah, I agree. We tried
Hey,
our
yeah,
best because we wanted to get it right. And
Hey, Captain, another side note I just thought of, before we actually have the site visit with our bidders, should we stake that? Put a stake in, this is what we're talking about in section.
that's a wonderful
Sure.
idea. We can use our STC budget to buy some stakes, some more, like not just flimsy flags, but like those wooden stakes.
Yeah, like surveyors put in.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And you know what? When we do that, we could maybe all remeasure, and then we can always put an addendum out if the bid needs an addendum to modify a measurement or something, if we did it.
Yeah, but at least when we go there, we could say, well, that stake
Yeah.
to that stake.
The only question with that, and just so we know, is if we do it in the winter and the ground is frozen, the likelihood of us getting that stake in the ground is not high. But we are not probably frozen ground yet, so we probably.
No. I got a 10-pound hammer.
Well, it's going to be a metal stake, right?
No,
No,
I'm thinking about the
I was
wooden
thinking
ones.
wood, but they do make those, like I put a semi-permanent, one of those taller stakes like you do where your driveway and it lasts all winter, those long stakes. Those are very drivable. And what's a 10-pound hammer?
It's a hammer that weighs 10 pounds.
Because it drives things, because
It makes pounding things in better,
It-
easier.
It's a heavy pounding, yeah.
It's a heavy
I-
pounding,
I have a sledgehammer. You can use that.
and it has a sledgehammer. And he's not afraid to use it.
Okay, wonderful. So that was the first comment. Second one is, this is very sad news, but I kind of suspected it. You will not be able to call out the required use of the Sioux Student Conservation Association, as this is a sole source procurement. As written, you are awarding a sole source contract to SEA within a general bid service contract. The purpose of a contractor bidding will be for his or her team of experts to execute the work. A contractor, by all means, can hire SEA to do the work if their desire or direction. You just can't dictate it, and you'll have to leave SEA out of the bid.
Kind of makes sense when he puts it that way.
And I was being bold. I was like, I'm gonna put everything we want in here and know that it could get cut. But I don't, so honestly, guys, I don't mean to say guys, people, I don't know how, because we were on SEA's schedule. So I don't exactly know how to manage being on their schedule, having an open bid, staying on their schedule, hoping the bidder uses SCA and without us telling them to do so. How do we make those two worlds work?
We can't.
Next. No, okay. So I will ask that question because I understand it was a long shot, but is there anything we can do to save our spot with SCA? Because we
And
submitted an
we-
application, we went through the process.
We can't say we would prefer, we can't mention them.
Yeah, I'll ask. I'll say anything we can do to save our spot with SCA. Anything we can, any words or phrases that we can use to.
We could say we're open to them using,
Ooh,
Yeah,
traditional,
I like that.
Yeah,
right?
that's a power of suggestion. So we're open to.
Using, and then we don't write the name of a specific group, but basically the type of group,
and
right?
there might already be a spot for you. Just kidding. Okay, too much.
But based on that language I was pointing out to you, they have to tell us who they're going to use as subcontractors.
Yes. Okay. That was the second sad thing. All right. So then the next one is the scope. So we have, let's see, the scope is here, right? The scope of all the bid elements of the project is long. This is funny because I didn't think I would make I would make sure Trails is sure on what is being asked. I believe we would need to bid amount for, in no particular order, project manager, natural earth trail, elevated boardwalk kit, and install another natural earth trail, bog bridge, fiberglass molded grading, helical.
Yeah, I think that's good, but the only thing I would change now, listening to him. Okay, number one, project manager, that's a person. 2, build a natural, so 3, procure and install. 4, it should say procure and install. 5, procure and install.
You can't procure and install a natural earth surface trail
Yeah,
on number 4.
Right, I'm just saying, anything that you buy, we should say. Sorry, 4, yeah, I agree.
This one you mean?
Yeah, and number,
Oh, this could be a build though. Well, I guess it's.
procure and install, that's pressure treated wood.
Yeah, you're right.
Procure and install, I just want to keep it consistent, this is what,
Yep,
now
that's good.
build and build.
Well,
procure, and
it would,
install.
with pressure treated wood, it's going to be procure and construct or whatever, right? So
Well, construct, install.
construct, yeah,
Construct and install.
sure.
yeah.
Now you're getting wordy.
Really,
Hmm.
that's the same thing as they have to construct the boardwalk kit and the fiberglass kit. So maybe it's assumed, like it's got to be inferred, right? Procure and install, like you can't install unless you constructed it. Can it be assumed?
Right, yeah.
You're getting wordy,
All right.
I think it's implied.
So he put down here, so what he added in his list was the fiberglass molding, helical piers, professional engineering services, environmental mitigation, native species, miscellaneous. And so that was under additional project requirements. So what do we have here? Let's see. If we can cut anything out. Trail design, construction.
No, I think it was above that, wasn't it above A, B, C, D, E? Contract, wait, hang on, let's just quickly go there. No, okay. Never mind, those are good.
Oh, because so here we have the stamped drawings. I mean, I don't know how to make it less. This is what our project
Well,
involves.
the C and the 3C and 6A, you could just put that in additional project requirements and specifications instead of repeating them in step 3 and step 6.
I like it. And it's not the duties and contract, it's this other stuff.
I would put it for the very first one. Yeah. Look at you, Microsoft Word master.
I just switched over, unfortunately. I didn't tell you. I don't know.
Bridge, and now we have to put the bridge and the other thing in here. Remember we separated them? Go back up.
Oh, wait, I gotta say.
No, it's. Yeah, remember, okay.
So remember, we had footings and then we had something else. We had changed it. So.
No, so you're gonna get rid of, let's finish that change. 3C is down there below.
They were slightly different. based-
Except one said boardwalk, one said bridge.
I just want to double check. Let me look.
Review of boardwork. I think you just have to put boardwork and bridge like we had it before.
All right, that's good.
Yeah, and then we can, then that made that top part a little bit cleaner.
Yep, okay, good. But it doesn't take away that, I mean, it is true, we do need those things. So, I mean, I find it funny because the example he gave me was a very long, very detailed bid. So
But
I-
to minimize impact to the wetland, do we have that someplace below that?
where do you,
See on 3B.
oh, wait, where's this, there's a 3 here, sorry, where?
Three right there. No, you were in 3. 3B.
Okay,
Did we mention anything about the impact on wetlands? I mean, that could be redundant.
just get rid of those words.
Yeah. Just put,
Well-
include Heliocopeers and Tommy ducks.
Or Tommy Docks, yeah, the reason,
I know that's the reason. We can keep it, that's fine.
I'm curious about that, because I'm like, his point is that you're asking for all these things, not that he's concerned that we're using a few extra words to minimize impacts on wetlands. He's concerned that we've got fiberglass grading molded panels and that we've got helical piers or Tommy Docks, that we're detailing it all. My point in doing that, and let's talk about it, is that's what we were told from the contractors that we were working with for the bridge and stuff, that it needs this stuff.
Otherwise, they're just gonna do anything and we have to
Yeah.
accept it.
Yeah, and part of why we want it in here is because that is our understanding of what we have put forth in our project scopes for these funding sources. So let me ask Mr. Davis what he thinks we should do given that piece.
I agree. I think we should keep it in because we want that versus, remember, the low bid wins. They can put in crap.
Yeah,
Not crap, but you know what I mean. They can do something else that we don't want.
Right, that's enough to bring our question home. All right, let's see what else we got. And so then there's more stuff, but that was the big piece. Yeah, so in general, I'll get what his thoughts are on how we can tighten this up. And yeah, so this all has to probably. I'm curious if he's comfortable with this. The
That
use
could
of,
be the same one that we just did. We are open, anything we could do to save.
yeah.
That could be the same.
Yeah, and I haven't heard from Melanie on the prevailing wage and how it works with this, how it works with. If it's required under ARPA funding and how it would work with SCA if we were to use them. So that's kind of unknown. So he did say, let's see, timing wise. Let me just see. Okay, so he needs it to go to, I asked what other people need to see it, and let me go ahead and put this in here so I don't forget. Okay, so other folks to review will be if I can spell the word review, Melanie. Melanie and the town council. Will be other people that need to review it. If that's the case, then, and so we're gonna try to talk tomorrow. What's days tomorrow? Wednesday, the 25th. So we have one more meeting on the 31st. Oh my. And I'm leaving on the 1st, and I'll be gone through the 9th. And so we'll see how far we can get with the 31st. And what might have to happen is if we tighten it up on the 31st and then it goes through the Melanie and legal counsel review. While I'm away, we get back and we'll have our meeting and see if we can start if we've got something final enough where we can go to submit bid. So then that puts us mid-February, a little bit later than we wanted to be. Open it up, say 30 days-ish. So now we're mid-March. Now the ground may be really frozen or not, and we are entering spring. So yeah, we'll see where that lands us.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're in good shape. And then what we can be doing in the meantime, well, there's no meantime really. We'll learn from we'll be able to update the committee on Tuesday, also the 31st, about where we are with the funding and how that's going to work. Let me ask a favor. Does anyone have time? I want whoever has the opportunity and interest in this. So we've got to get extra sign vendor quotes. We already have 3 vendors that initially quoted. So I'm happy to send out the email to the two that we need updated from. We have one already updated. And just so you know, Fossil Industries, I had reached out to the town of Ashland about who did Marathon Park. So they had some signs. It's just actually down the road from us, and they were really nice signs. They held up well, and they've been installed for about 7 years. So I used that vendor because it was a town, neighboring town that also used it for signs that similar to what we're going to be using them, and how we're, the display is just what we're looking for. And I wanted to speak to a human about how was the working with the vendor, and how did the product hold up, so we have a good reference from another municipality. I also asked our sign vendor who did the Southborough Trails, the carved signs. He did the town forest sign for stewardship. His name is Philip, and he's Springer Craft Signs. I asked him who he would recommend, and this name came up unrelated. He didn't. So it was a twofer as far as recommendations. But the other 2 vendors, we do need to get updated quotes for the whole procurement to satisfy that process. So if I can I copy someone on that email, and that person help me answer any questions, and obviously I'll be available to help you answer questions if there are questions. But we do have a project spec sheet, so it should kind of be pretty clear, and I'll write to each of them and copy whoever volunteers, and then you kind of help me get through that process, and we can go through the
This
reference
will be
sheet.
talking to the vendors.
Yeah, so I'm going to write it and say, hey, you provided us a quote in 2020. Can you provide an updated quote based on the attached quote? And I'll give them their old quote. So their new prices will come into effect, right? And then we're going to ask for references. So I'll need someone to be on that with me, and that person take the references and make calls. So is there someone who's available? It's only 2 vendors.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
I guess, how many signs are we asking for?
Yeah, so let me pull that up quickly. I'll go there.
I mean, you can
No,
just send
go-
it
go-
to
go.
me or whatever, but just like to have a good feel, and also how big the podium that these signs are going to be on, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we were really clear about that. So give me just a second. Mhm, mhm, mhm. Mhm. So I sent over Project Scoop.
This is what Isabel did, right?
Yeah, she was the second on that. Here we go. Okay, I'll share this now. I'll update it a little bit just to make sure it's current because our future cells are smarter than past cells. Do you guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a little scope about the project. So we're looking like a larger kiosk type sign at 2 locations and other signs installed throughout the trail. So what I have, I'm scrolling now, scrolling. So it's going to
Do
look
we
like
have
this.
any pictures of, something we, that
Yeah,
would
do you,
give them
do you see what's on the screen now, Will? It may have taken a moment to scroll up. There's a
Let's-
couple of,
let me get to the right screen here.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
okay. So
Okay.
these are called like double pedestal angled, and then we have a single post. So, and just so you know, some of these signs at this park, very text heavy, not looking for that. So we're looking at just the structure of the sign, not the infographic.
Content.
Don't get caught up so much on the amount of text on these, but that's what they're typically going to look like. Probably not bright blue. We want it to kind of meld with the environment. So, and then I included some options here. And it looks like, so we're going to do what we've quoted as 2 double posts, 2 double cantilevers, 2 single posts, and 2 single posts. Let me
Now,
just see.
who's going to do the actual sign that goes on these posts or pedestals?
That is part of the process that they would do the graphics and the hardware. Right. And then we would need an installer.
Yeah, but I mean, do we have any mock-up of what we want the text and the?
No, that's our fun part 2, 3, or 4. Yeah, no, that's what we, so that we worked, we've reached out to the,
Historical.
just a minute. Yeah, thank you. Historical, and asked them to, help us, come up with the history text. And we've got Andy Leahy from the DCR Ranger, who does our history walk, has a ton of information. And DCR also volunteered. They have a lot of information on protecting watersheds and that type of stuff that we can include as well. So a good partnership of people. I wanted to show you a picture.
So we're going to give them the content, but not the camera ready copy. Right? We're sort of depending on them to do some
yeah, the graphic design work.
graphic design work.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. So here's a picture of the trail, and the red dots represent potential signage. Starting here at Central and Route 30 would be a kiosk. Then you have a sign here ish. These are ish spots. A couple of spots here. We don't want too many. And then down here we would have a kiosk that might not be the exact location. Because if we have parking on the other side, we can consider if the kiosk should go, in more visible line. And then near the Stony Brook, we wanted to highlight the historic nature of the double arch bridge that was built in the late 1800s, as well as the gatehouse was also built in the late 1800s on this side. So
Are these wheelchair accessible signs?
No, you're in the woods.
well, actually, no. To the point is that some of, if we're putting a sign on the accessible part of the trail, it should be wheelchair accessible. And so we do need to consider that. And that's a really good question as far as whether the signs that we have received quotes for will qualify as that.
Well, it's basically to be wheelchair accessible. It's got to be at a certain height, and you got to be able
Yeah.
to pull up
Yeah.
to it.
So I think
it-
I think a lot of them will be, and I don't think it's going to increase the cost. I think it just is the design and the position
it
and having
could-
a platform around it, or in that way being accessible.
could increase the cost of this pedestal.
Mm, we should specify them, especially on the paid spot of the trail. So bring up that thing, probably changing it to make sure that it is wheelchair accessible.
I don't, right, but we want to make sure. I got to think about how to do that, because
Well, this assignment I've taken on is to talk to them, right?
No, well, so not quite. Now we're, okay, going into something else. We're bringing, now the project has changed a little bit. I wanna, we've already spoken to all of them and they've already all provided a quote. So ideally, what we were initially talking about is re-quoting the same project, not getting involved in changing specs. But what now we need to identify is, will the signs, if they need to meet ADA requirement, or we want them to meet ADA requirement, how does that change the quote, if at all?
Well, ADA requirement, now you're doing Braille.
No.
Not necessarily. I
I'm
mean,
sorry,
you know,
let me be specific. When I mean ADA requirement, I mean height and accessibility to the sign.
wheelchair bound.
Wheelchair. Wheelchair.
Yeah,
I think it's,
Okay,
Yeah.
I wouldn't,
I mean,
I wouldn't get into Braille, you know.
I
Well,
agree with you, but there's also Braille
but-
at parking garages.
But speaking of that, I mean, I still need to reach out to Spec, and talk to them about that, because if they are able to, that might help if they are able to contribute $1,000 to that sign, right? If there's a cost increase with the signage based on changing it to be accessible. I'm just curious if we should be forward thinking. I mean, we need to be aware of the cost factor. We don't have a lot of extra money and we don't know what the cost of things are going to come in at. But if we're, ideally in the future, like if we're able to make more of this trail accessible by either paving it with another project or something, would it behoove us to go ahead and be forward thinking in that all of our signs that
Well,
we're installing be that
No,
way?
You got some pretty steep slopes. I don't
Well,
think it's
see,
ever
that's the
going to
thing.
be.
We're never gonna get to the other side, and that we'll never get over that slope on the other
Nope.
side. Right, but
You-
it might be possible to extend at least past the pumping station a bit.
I guess I do have a question, which is, isn't the signage sort of the cherry on top of the sundae? And what I mean by that is that, why would we necessarily feel under a time pressure to get the signage specified?
Well, we don't feel pressured other than it's part of the mass grant process.
I understand, but I'm just wondering, why not sort of let things develop in other areas and then say, okay, now we're ready. We know where we want the signs to be. And, maybe we've thought more about it. I mean, I'm certainly happy to go and talk to the vendors, but I think at this stage, I'd be more about talking to them about ideas and things rather than
Well,
saying, we
They're,
want you to
they're
re-quote.
not developing the ideas we are. We've
But-
got the content, we've got the scope, right? All that is ours.
Well, there
Well,
are, there are
let's-
some
let's-
questions about, wheelchair accessible and, if you're putting this sign on a slope, that kind of thing,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, just talk about timeline. So we got these quotes, I don't know, last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Realistically, when would we be purchasing these?
It's a TBD because we've got,
TBD 6 months or TBD a year, because then they're gonna have to requote them.
right, 90-day, right? So let me ask the committee, like, my thoughts are, and we have until 2024 December, but I'm not interested in dragging the project out just because we have until December 2024. So why can't we try to move forward in 2023 and finish the project if we can?
I
Totally agree.
I totally agree, but what I would say is that you could select a quote in August and still get it in by 2024, I think. What's the lead time on a sign?
Okay, so that's a good question. The longest part of this part of the project is going to be the content and finalize. That's going to take a while for us to figure out what all the signs are going to be, where they should be placed, and that type of thing. So I think
Right.
that's going to be a long process, and we're going to be collaborating with other people. It's going to end up being closer to summer. It's going to slow roll that process. So that's why I think we should try to continue. There's not a rush or time crunch. We do need to ask some questions and see how our signs meet the accessibility and how they need to change to be able to do so. But
We
it
don't
doesn't
need a
make
quote
sense.
at this time because we don't know what we really want.
Yes, we do know what we really want. We've already gone to quote on this project. We've received 3 quotes. We've gone through the Community Preservation Act it was a long, very long process, and we had it very scoped out. So, so we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from basic ideas that the committee has been working on since 2020.
I understand. I just, I mean, okay, so in your mind, when is it that we go for their best and final quote?
I think we need to go ahead and start the conversation. I think, if we get a quote and they're good for 90 days and we get a quote in February, that feels realistic.
Yeah, but okay, so how much time is there for a conversation?
With the vendors?
Yeah.
Yeah. How much time? What do you, what do you mean?
You said you want to start the conversation and then get a quote by February, well, not February 1st, obviously, but sometime in February, right? So when do you see the conversation ending, I guess? What is the date range for the conversation?
So I think now it's in February. And I think 2 people, yeah. So
you're saying that basically we have a 1-week conversation.
why is there need to be a start and a stop time? I'm confused about that piece where
Well, I'm
help me
just trying
understand
to,
what you're getting.
I'm saying be loosey goosey, and you're saying we need to get this done now, and I just want to figure out what now is when you say now.
Well, yeah, now is now-ish, right? Like, okay, so maybe
Okay,
my
what is nowish then? I'm sorry,
well,
that's the wrong
now,
question.
okay, so maybe we're taking it literally, and I don't mean for it to, so I'll try to use different words. I don't think we should wait until June to do this. I think because we're going through the procurement process now, like we did with the fencing, we got new quotes. I think the next step is to do that with our sign quotes. Okay.
Okay, with the fencing, we know what we wanted. We knew what we wanted, right? And that was pretty cut and dried. With the signage, if it's cut and dried, then there's no need for a conversation. We just ask them to update their quotes and we're
The
done, right?
only thing that's not cut and dry that's new for the signage is the accessibility.
Okay, so then we need a conversation in some limited time frame on accessibility, and then we'll make a decision as to what extent we want to go that route, maybe not at all, and then ask for a quote. Does that make sense?
A requote based on the old
A
quote,
requote.
yeah.
Well, a requote updated on an updated spec.
Yeah.
Possibly updated. I mean, it might be that when we hear it's gonna, 10 times the cost or something, we're gonna say no, and we won't update this.
Well, I think we should be able to do at least a couple signs, right? Because if we think of the accessibility part of the trail is only 0.4 miles. We're not putting 3 signs in 0.4 miles, right? Because I think we only had 1, 2, 3, 4 signs like scattered throughout the whole thing, and one being a kiosk, right? So the kiosk needs to be accessible and a sign. And then the remaining signs don't necessarily have to be accessible, but they may be by default. Because have you been on the rail trail in Holliston or any of those rail trails where the signage, these signs that we're talking about,
No.
are installed? Because many of them are at a height of like accessibility, and if you were in a wheelchair, you would be able to go up to them. So
Okay. All right. So Okay, so what we're saying so far is that we do want some signs, 2 or 3, to be accessible in the first part of the trail. Whether or not they should be accessible in the rest of the trail is open to what? It's open to cost, basically?
Not just basically cost, it means like part of the trail can't be accessible, so why would we put accessible trail and
That's
a
true.
sign? Like, when the slope is so impossible that we can't redesign the road and the slope, that's where we're saying it probably doesn't make sense to do a sign and do the additional cost.
Okay,
If-
I mean, if that's a decision, and if that's the decision, that's the decision. So, okay,
But if
so
we're,
what you're
but
saying is,
I,
yeah,
I,
okay.
this is gonna go on forever. So if I understand, so now we got these quotes a long time ago, so we can put the budget into the grant and we know how much they cost. Now we need a little bit better quotes, but things changed a little bit. Like I said, we need wheelchair accessible. And realistically, how many do we need? We should be able to determine that, but when we're doing the prices for the sign, we should get a price for handicap accessible and non-handicap accessible. And if it's the same cost, then it really doesn't matter. But do we want to get the quote when we have the content? Or when we got the original quote, the content was built into their price?
We didn't have content.
I know,
The
no, that was not my question. Was the content, they have to create, they have to lay out the content on this structure.
the
They have
layout
to
was
do
not-
work.
Right. Yep.
Did that cost of doing whatever we produce, it doesn't matter what we produce now, then, or whatever, they still have to do that work. Was that included?
Yep. There was a quote, there was a price included for graphic design. Let me just pull up a quote and see what we have here. Because they
Did we
gave us. an-
specify the maximum dimensions of the signage?
Yeah, because that's gonna change if we don't have our content. That's why I'm driving to this is we might be putting the horse before the wagon right here. If they can fill anything on our size, then it doesn't matter. But if they need the content to give us a real price, then we need the content.
We have approximate sizes and our content will fit in those approximate sizes.
Okay,
based on-
that's all that, then all that
Even,
matters. So,
even if we don't know what the content is, it will fit. That's good.
yeah, well, that's all we have. In other words, that's all we have to put our content in. That's it. I mean, that's black and white. We have X by X. And our content has to fit into that. Period.
Okay, so this is like the New York Times. It's either all the words that are fit to print or all the words that fit to print.
So these quotes are on SharePoint. Everyone is allowed to see them, look at them, review them, and question them. The sign sizes, lots of detail went into the discussion about what is an appropriate size, what do we think might work, that kind of thing. If we as a committee feel like we need to modify the signs, a size here or there, these were just recommendations based on experience and based on similar trails. So we can all go do our research and come back with recommendations for changes. So why don't I propose we do that in February, in our February meeting? Everyone, please review the quotes and then come back with your recommendation on changes.
I think Tom brought up one of the most important things, and that is that if these quotes are only good for 90 days, then we need to sort of figure out, you know, when are we actually projecting that we're going to put these signs in?
So based on my experience, even with the requotes, the changes in price are minuscule. Like they're not thousands of dollars difference. They're just hundreds of dollars difference based on materials and costs and stuff. So
Yeah, but we're asking
not
them,
that
we're asking
concerned.
them to give us a quote that'll be good for X number of days. Right? Not infinite number of days, but some finite number of days.
Yeah, that's usually how quotes work. They usually have a finite number.
Right. So, you know, the question, as Tom was saying, if we get a quote, you know, in February or March, and, you know, then 6 months goes by and we go back and they say, well, sorry, but we're going to have to raise the price. Do we have to requote at that time?
Yes, a quote's only good for 90 days.
Why would it last 6 months?
Well,
Why
see,
wouldn't we be able to
he's
do
going
it?
They may
worst
not
case
be
scenario.
ready to buy it. right?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't, why wouldn't we be ready in 6 months? I mean, what is the problem with getting a requote?
I guess
Why are we
that
so
You know,
afraid of getting?
you
a
know what, when
requote?
we get the requote, one of the questions when we requote is, thank you, we'll review the sizes and all that stuff, and we have to ask them. This price includes our content being placed within the dimensions of each sign. That's the only thing that's unknown to me.
I'm sorry, what was that question?
Okay, we don't have content.
Yeah,
And is their prices including putting the content on these signs? I don't see
what is
anywhere where it
putting the
says that.
content on these signs? What does that mean? Like literally doing the design board, right?
We give them a
Creating
design
board.
board. We give, okay, let's go to scroll to the first one. Let's just scroll to the top, right there. We have a sign that's 48 by 30, or what size is the actual side panel is 48 by 36. Okay, you see all that? We have quantity of 2 of them. It costs $19.77 for 2 of them, so $1,000 each. Where in that quote does it say they're gonna create, not create the content, put that content on this frame?
High pressure laminate print, that is the one. Yeah.
Okay, if that's the case, then we're fine, and we can give them the final, and then we can quote them right now, because we have to wait for content creation. That's gonna take a while.
Okay,
And then the next one is, the panel is, what size is it? Is 18 by 24. All right, if that's high pressure laminate print. Okay, so that means they're gonna create the laminate print based off our PDF or whatever file that we give them. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit nervous about, we ask them for a quote, we choose a vendor, right? Based on the quotes. Then we wait 4 or 5 months before we actually come back to exercise the quote. And they say, well, it's going to cost this much more. And if that's okay, that's fine.
so I hear your concern and I appreciate that you're bringing it up, but I think we're gonna have to do our due diligence to move forward in the process the best we can. We're gonna know midway through if this is taking longer, and we can communicate with the vendor and say, hey, look, this is where we're at, this is what it's looking like. How are we with quote? Like the fossil industries requoted several times and they followed up in an amazing way. I mean, like, I'm not that concerned that we have to get a requote. Like, I feel like we're in a good position to move forward. So asking for a requote is not a deal breaker, and we're not going to be changing. The quote's not going to change by thousands of dollars from month
I
4
don't-
to month 8.
I don't think Will's angst is the change in price. I think the angst is we're not to a point where we have to really concentrate time and effort into this yet. Correct me if
Well,
I'm wrong,
that
Will.
would be my other point. Yes.
I disagree. I think all points in the project need to move forward in a comfortable pace so that we can meet our objectives. I don't think waiting, because you're going to take summer out. You've got to build in vacations. You got to build in all sorts of delays that we're going to be experiencing.
Plus there's college spring break, there's the melting of the snow. My God, we probably are too late at this point.
That's pretty minimizing considering what I just mentioned for schedule conflicts. They're pretty
Yes, I agree.
known and very relevant in our world and have actually caused delays. So, it is what it is.
Okay,
All right.
well then back to my question, on what schedule would you like this to move ahead?
Let's aim for the end of February. How about that? That gives you a few weeks to feel a little bit more comfortable about things. We'll
Okay,
talk to
the
them
end of February, to ask for a quote again.
For the quotes to be updated due by the end of February.
to discuss. Yep.
Nope,
To make,
nope.
yeah, I think that gives us 2 weeks in February. It doesn't take a lot to pick up the phone and talk to a vendor and say,
No.
hey, this
No.
is
And
our
then-
quote, you quoted us at 2020. We
Okay.
want to just make sure we have some accessibility here. What are some of our options? And can you price based on,
Yep.
that type
Right.
of.
So we're asking them to, start quoting at the middle of February and finish by the end of February.
No,
So-
no. We're gonna, yes, so we need quotes by the end of February and we could probably make orders in March. If
Right,
it takes a month or two to get in there, that's April, May, perfect timing before the summer.
Well, we can't put an order in March. It's gonna take us a lot longer to get the content. I think we've all talked about.
Oh, true, very true.
Yeah, that is gonna, it's gonna take us some time to do the content, so.
So,
we won't order these until we have the content, is what you're saying.
correct.
Okay,
Oh, gosh, yeah, no, yeah, right, no, not at all.
So is that the long pole is the content now?
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I feel like if at least we have a rough, an estimate that we can believe in, because we're gonna be in the throes of a bid in February, we're gonna be doing a site visit, we're gonna have some Q&A. If all we're, other than that, doing, and maybe managing a fence vendor, if all we're doing is getting quotes, then that gives us time to get through the other process. And we can deal with the sign content as the next phase, right?
okay.
That would bring us into March sometime.
Just to
And it
nail down, a date, then we want them to come back to us with a quote by the end of February.
And updated quotes by the end of February, yes, with
Okay.
references. And we can vent the references also, possibly by then.
Okay,
And then
and,
we need content.
and it probably, we'll have placeholders for content, or we'll just say, here's how much room we're gonna allocate for this sign, and our content will fit into there. We'll trim it or slice it or dice it or whatever. And, if you need 2 weeks to do your quote, once we've, had any conversations, then fine. But as long as they get back by the end of February.
And if what happens for us, if they can't get back by Feb 28th, there's no magic number. Like I hear that, we want to put a date on it, but it doesn't. If it goes into March 3rd or 5th, who cares? Like, it's not that critical, but we're putting timelines just to understand where we're going and what we all agree to.
Okay.
Is that
But
helpful?
I guess back to Tom's point about the long pole, I mean,
What?
the content, in other words, okay.
You
now
never heard
let's-
that phrase, the long
No,
pole?
I've heard that a lot.
You're
the
old
long
enough, you
pole.
heard it.
But the one that's going to determine how long it's actually really going to take. What is our process for getting the content?
Want to lay that out tonight?
Okay. But I mean,
Do you want to lay that out tonight?
no.
No.
But it sounds like we need to nail that down, because it's potentially the limiting factor here as to when we can actually get these things done.
It's a factor. There's lots of factors. I mean, this is part of like managing the project, right? Seeing when we think we'll be able to do things and figuring out a timeline that works and going forward and seeing if it works. And if it doesn't, we have to be flexible in what we are.
No,
like with the bids.
absolutely. I was just reacting to your comment to say that it'd be complicated getting the content. And if it's complicated getting the content, then, we need to work on what that process is going to be.
I agree. Because there's a lot of moving parts. There's DCR, there's historical, there's us, there's, the review, the finalization, making sure it's the right. There's lots that goes into the interpretive signs. You remember the workshop we attended?
Yep.
Will, that went,
Yep.
Yep. It might be good to reach out to that contact actually.
Yes. I mean, especially if we want to put any, history about the reservoir itself or whatever.
Cool. Okay. What else? Anything else?
Is there any other portion of this project besides these three big things, signage, fences, and, the bridge, boardwalk, bog bridge?
Yep, there's potential plantings for natural fence. There's the mitigation with native, plantings on the other side.
Now, are we looking for volunteer labor for those things?
It depends.
It all depends what the bids come back at.
Yep.
And then the planting of the trees,
That just depends if it comes up with the neighbors. We're not gonna put
Right.
it out there as we'll do this for sure, but if it comes, like, if we have some resistance, then we have a back pocket solution.
Who's bidding on the tree plantings?
we're not gonna go there until we know if we have to do it,
Oh, who's gonna tell us if we have to do it?
the abutters. If
Oh,
they,
okay,
like Catherine just
If
said,
we have an issue, yeah.
okay,
if we
all
have an
right.
issue. And it's all gonna come to when the gate gets moved and they can see, all that stuff, then the mitigation for that.
Did any fence give us any dates do we have any dates from them as to when they're gonna commence?
Nope, because I started out the conversation that we're gonna wait till we have our financial meeting on Thursday before we give them a heads up, just in case there's something that comes from that. And I think they were looking at 10 to 12 weeks out, and that was in December when I chatted with them about their timetable. That may have changed.
Oh, so they're not gonna start until after winter's over.
Not no, no.
You might get lucky if the winter is slow and they have an opening, some cancels, any number of things could happen. That would be.
Oh,
'Cause
so
remember-
10 to 12 weeks is a worst case.
It's what they provided.
Okay,
So yeah, it's a worst case.
okay.
I mean, most people will give that standard answer, so.
So
We can't do they can't give us a timeline until we give them
I should hold off on doing my massive insider trading stock buy on it.
of any fence.
Okay.
Yep,
All right, good. So I'll connect with Tim and get his feedback on the rest of the bid and put that together with a draft. I'll send that. I'll let you know when the SharePoint's been updated. And we'll go from there. And the next item on the agenda, is there anything else with that project that we haven't touched on that we want to? Okay. So number 6, committee business related to maintenance, trail butters, website and policies. No new updates on that. Okay, next meeting is next Tuesday, the 31st, 7:30.
yes,
Right.
Great. Hey, can I ask, do we want to go ahead and schedule a meeting in February?
yes.
Would you be open as a committee to meeting on the 14th?
No, you can't do the 14th.
Oh, it's Valentine's
I've
Day.
got a business networking thing or whatever that I got to go to on the 14th.
Okay,
Plus, you don't in the afternoon, and you don't want to do anything at night. Yeah,
okay. How about the 15th?
that'd be fine.
Yeah, the 15th would be, that'd be better than,
Difficult for me.
Difficult for you, Sati?
Yeah.
Okay. How about the 16th? Well,
16th
is
is fine.
Monday the 13th an option?
I'm fine
What
with
day of
Monday
the
the
week is the 13th?
Yeah, it's fine.
Monday.
Yeah, that'd
Yeah,
be great.
I went backwards, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 13th would be great.
Okay, so let me,
13th works.
that might work out great then. Let me send out a reminder for
People will
that.
still be hopeful that they'll have a happy Valentine's Day.
It's a Hallmark holiday.
Okay. So, yeah, so I'll see if we can meet then and then, all right, so then do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Great, and roll call, Isabella Bogdansky,
Yeah, yes.
Satyendra Sharma,
Yes.
Tom Collier,
Yes.
Will Warren. You're muted or I can't hear you.
You gotta say it
Yes.
louder.
yes.
Okay, and Kat McKee, great. So we adjourn at 8:44. Thank you very much for all the feedback and good work, and we'll see you next week.
I had one question.
Yes.
So about the town
Oh, you want to stop recording? We're
Yeah,
no
you
longer.
can
in
I
stop
session.
think it's related to the minutes. Is that right? So
Yeah, that's really, so you can stop recording and.